Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's event. Entitled Implementing Modern Management into Your Unified Endpoint Management Strategy, this event is brought to you by Quest and Actual Tech Media. I'll get some introductions out of the way shortly, but I want to start with a very important topic of questions. If you have questions, please make sure you ask them during today's event. You can use the question mark icon in your console to ask any question you like, and we have an incentive for you I'll discuss in just a second. Also note, there are a number of handouts available on today's event. Please use the Handouts tab in your console to take a look at what we have to provide. And today's prize will be a $300 Amazon gift card. My name is Scott Lowe. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I will be your moderator today. If you ask a great question, it could be worth $50. We are going to give the best question asker a $50 Amazon gift card. The prize winner will be selected by us and will be contacted after the event. Winners must still meet the Actual Tech Media prize policy, which you can find in the handouts area of your console. Today's presenters are James Rico, a field sales consultant with Quest, and Ken Galvin, a senior product manager with Quest. We'll be hearing from them shortly, but before we get to them, here's some of the things you're going to learn. You'll discover why it's important to have a single pane of glass management experience for today's diversified environments, especially when it comes to endpoint protection and endpoint management in general. You'll discover how a modern endpoint management solution protects all of your company's data on both company and employee-owned devices. And you'll discover ways in which KACE Unified Endpoint Management unifies both traditional and modern endpoint management, allowing you the freedom of both. Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about the state of security, particularly at the endpoint. When we think about security, it's kind of a bad thing right now. We hear a lot of things in the news about different security breaches, and it's generally not a good news story. In fact, a new business will fall victim to ransomware every 11 seconds by 2021. That's kind of a lot. 11 seconds is not a very, very long amount of time, but ransomware is becoming more sophisticated than ever. But it's just one issue that we have to face in terms of overall security. And when we think about endpoints, ransomware becomes a logical leap because it's one of the most common methods by which ransomware is introduced into an environment. Endpoints are the source of most data breaches in some way, shape, or form. So that means your endpoints must be secure if you have any hope of preventing future data breaches. In essence, endpoints are sort of the gateway to all of your organization's systems. If someone is able to access an endpoint, whatever that user has access to becomes immediately accessible by the bad guy. And that's not a good situation. And the other thing to bear in mind is your endpoint devices are the ones that are often operated by fallible humans. It's often been said that the weakest link in any security plan is the human being behind the keyboard. And that is true. I mean, there's lots of ways to try to protect against that and train people. But at the end of the day, people make mistakes. And that often leads to organizations suffering a security loss of some type. And now when we think about traditional endpoints, your desktops and your laptops, they're strewn about the globe. Remote work exploded in an unexpected way in 2020, and we all know why. And we're probably not going back to the way that things were in the past. Now, in some way, shape, or form, lots of organizations will go back to having on-premises people or people in their offices. But for a number of organizations, hybrid is the new normal, or even fully work from home or remote work. And so the ability to secure endpoints by not just having them behind a traditional corporate firewall is increasingly important. And the definition of endpoint is probably broader than you think. Now, when you think endpoint, we often jump to desktops and laptops. But today, that includes phones, Internet of Things devices, HVAC systems, whatever anyone could be interacting with that's on your network is an endpoint, and it needs different kinds of protection to make sure that it doesn't get compromised and create a security issue for your organization. And in terms of computers, it's more than just Windows. Now, most of you will know this, but this today includes Windows, Mac OS, iOS, Android, Linux, Chromebooks. The number of devices, the types of devices, the variety of devices that people are bringing to the organization particularly in different kinds of organizations, is huge. Now, a lot of organizations continue to operate with things like bring your own device policies, and basically use your own phone and stuff like that for access to corporate information. So an endpoint strategy has to take into consideration the fact that users will be using a very wide variety of devices in the organization. And endpoint protection is way more than just antivirus. This is one of the things when I talk to people, when we say endpoint protection, they say, oh, antivirus? And it's like, yes, but it also includes patching, because obviously an unpatched endpoint is an invitation for disaster from a security perspective. Vulnerability scanning, determining what endpoints are vulnerable to what types of attacks. Having a service desk component so people can ask questions. Asset management, knowing what you have, what's connected to the network, what state it's in. Software deployment, so you can make sure that you're staying current on software so you don't have an application that ends up compromising your environment. This is a lot more than just antivirus, and this is something that I think people need to keep in mind when it comes to endpoint protection. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's presenters, James Rico and Ken Galvin. Gentlemen, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Implementing Modern Management into Unified Endpoint Management Strategy. I am Ken Galvin, Senior Product Manager at KACE, and I have with me James Rico, who's our Senior Engineer. We're going to be talking to you about Unified Endpoint Management today. I'm going to start off by talking to you a little bit about the history, of Unified Endpoint Management, or what we're going to call UEM, and the evolution of it. So if you look at Wave 1 on the left-hand side, not too long ago, there were two distinct types of management systems. Systems that manage traditional server client computers, and then later on, mobile device management systems. So if you look in Wave 2, which we're now in, we see the merging of the two. So most users can use just one console to manage everything. And we're moving towards Wave 3, where will just be one console for everything. So UEM definitions vary depending on which of those two types of systems you evolved from. Traditional client server solution providers like KACE and Microsoft Systems Center Configuration Manager, for example, consider Unified Endpoint Management as very deep management, typically with an agent on the computer that gathers data and hands it over to the server in regular intervals. Then you add mobile devices into the inventory of managed devices and view it all on one console. Mobile device solution providers like Workspace ONE, formerly AirWatch, for example, they define it as managing your iOS and Android devices, and then typically adding Windows 10 laptops or Macs and managing those laptops the same way as you would an iOS device, an iPad or an iPhone. So managing laptops that way is what the industry calls modern management. But the solutions that start with mobile management have limitations because you won't manage a Windows server with modern management. You can't manage a Linux server. And then when it comes to IoT and printers, projectors, network equipment, battery backups, HVAC systems, Chromebooks, refrigerators, okay? And what about older Windows operating systems, for example, like Windows 7? As you'll notice, Windows 7 is still here. There's a lot of Windows 7 still out there, even though it's not even supported anymore. 28% of computers out there are still on Windows 7. And there's also embedded operating systems that are used in retail point-of-sale machines, running Windows embedded XP 2009, for example, or electronic signage or medical IoT devices. So, and they keep they keep these operating systems up and running in these devices for a long, long time. So while they call it Unified Endpoint Management, it really isn't. And some of the traditional endpoint management solutions aren't really either. But traditional management alone doesn't give you the cool modern management functionality, like being able to ship computers directly to the end user instead of having to ship them from the manufacturer to the IT department to image and configure, and then reship it to the end user. Last year, the IT department office where they do all this was closed, right? Everyone was home. So that sure came in handy last year, huh? A pre-enrolled computer shows up at the new employee's home. They use their corporate credentials to log onto the computer. The computer automatically downloads and installs the basic tools they need to do the job, and also installs the case agent to do the traditional stuff if they need to do deep granular management. That's a great example of modern management. And what about easily locking and resetting lost and stolen devices? It's awesome. So there will always be use cases for both traditional and modern management of computers. And we're really heavily advantaged in that respect, because if all you have is modern device management, you can't manage all the other stuff, the servers, Linux, older Windows, IoT stuff, printers, so it ain't managed, it ain't unified management. Also note that Case integrates seamlessly with Workplace ONE and with Google G Suite for mobile device management. So the key here is that organizations, customers, they need everything all under one pane of glass. So that way, you can manage your entire business instead of managing your management systems. So Case customers have the flexibility to manage all of their endpoints together in a variety of ways. Most solutions force you to an either or situation. It's either cloud management or on-premises management, either subscription or perpetual licensing, modern or traditional management, right? It's cloud management with Case, it's cloud management and or premises management, subscription and or perpetual licensing, modern and or traditional management. With Case, it's both and, right? So the key word to remember here is flexibility. So customers want to move to modern management for a variety of good reasons. Modern management's great. With the movement to work from home and remote management, it's been extremely helpful to IT admins, especially when it comes again to enrollment. If I have 20 employees who need a new computer, I enroll them, have the computer set directly to them and set it to my IT department to set up first and reship, as we talked about. They open it up, they put in their credentials, boom, they're up and basically up and running, ready to go. And being able to easily lock and wipe lost and stolen devices, super good stuff. And that's affecting everything you need to know about securing this foundation of your data security and all that by securing all your endpoints, because that is the gateway to all of your data, right? Ultimately. So, why are we going to modern management? Well, the modern basement, the enrollment, the easy wipe and lock, also the easy profiles, to be able to just easily put on a Wi-Fi profile or a VPN profile and give them access to certain things and only those things, and be able to do it easily by shooting this stuff out there the kind of way you would with an iPad or an iPhone, so forth. Also, a big thing is turnkey. The big word is turnkey. You need to be able to make it quick and fast and not have to do a lot of setup. We have a survey. You'll see some results from our survey we did recently by Kingpin, saying that survey said that the number one factor for purchasing EM was how ease of use, particularly for setup. So turnkey is very important. Also, having that, making it more user-centric and not device-centric as much, by doing subscription license management and having an easy UX and UI to be able to do subscription. So I can buy just what I need when I need it. If this month I need 1,000, great. 2 months from now I need 1,100. I add 100, so on and so forth. Also, it's cloud-based, less maintenance, less upgrades, backup, restore, and all that kind of stuff. And there's also the factor of being able to have, zero trust kind of security measures and that sort of thing, which is where everything's going. And that's all great, but what if you, what do you have to give up if you go 100% modern? Well, let's start with discovery. Okay, what's hitting your network? What's accessing your data? If you don't know what you have, you can't manage it. And most importantly, you can't secure it. Since Case manages everything, we have a large variety of methods to discover what's in the environment. So networks can be scanned in multiple ways for computers and servers and Chromebooks and printers and network devices and that ever-growing collection of IoT devices out there. So these are, we have these, combination of quick and dirty, what and where scans, all the way to extremely detailed scans. So another way, particularly for Chromebooks and mobile devices, we integrate with cloud consoles like the Cloud Mobile Device Manager, the Workspace ONE, Google I mentioned, and connecting all or connecting to all the virtual machines through a hypervisor interface. So asset data can be import it from Excel or CVS file too. Asset management isn't just for IT devices, right? What about desks and chairs and security and badges and trucks and anything? We can't scan networks to discover desks, right? So after a device has been discovered, from there, your customer decides if they want to manage it or not. We'll talk about the management a lot more in a second, but keep in mind that unless a decision is made to manage the device, a license is not consumed when a discovery is done with KACE. You're not paying for anything, okay? So discovery costs nothing until it's decided that you want to manage it. So, if you decide the device is going to be managed, then it will take up a license. But until then, it does not consume a license. So customers can scan all their networks for free, all they want, all the time. So why would anyone want to do that? Well, part of discovery is understanding what should be on your network, but another part of discovery is finding anything that should not be there, rogue devices. We'll talk about that more in a couple of minutes when we get into security, but part of IT hygiene should be running a regular scan of all your IP addresses on the network to see if a device that should be there is not there. Shouldn't be there, is not there. Anyway, a daily discovery scan, it's going to detect and raise a notification. And then an alert can be automatically created. And subsequently, a case service desk ticket with a higher priority to ensure the right person checks it out. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. But once you have what is discovered, it can be enrolled if it's mobile, Windows 10 or Mac device. You can enroll it via Apple or Google, similar to how you do your own phone, for example, but with many more options, depending on whether your company owns a device or whether it's a personal device that someone's using for work. But think about 50 iPads for a school, for example, and automating enrollment with Apple instead of doing it the way we used to, one at a time, 50 times, right? But you can't do that if I'm a teacher, for example, who started working from home during the quarantine, and I want to use my personal iPad or computer, right? You may have heard it referred to as bring your own device or BYODs. So now there's a way where this teacher goes online and initiates downloading a profile that allows them to connect to the network and access stuff. So if a customer is using KACE, they'll do most of the tasks on the main console, but they'll also use the cloud connector for enrollment and to do the hardcore specific stuff like wiping a lost device. The cool thing about Quest is Quest designed KACE's cloud product to work both as a standalone also for customers who don't have mobile device management solutions. So you can do that as well. But if it's a computer that needs to be managed in a more granular traditional way, provisioning usually includes putting a software agent on the device. The agent runs in the background, and periodically throughout the day, the KACE server says, "Yo, what you got?" And the agent provides updated information on all the hardware and software, which we'll talk about during the management section of the training thing here. But again, if you don't know what you got, you can't manage it and you can't secure it. And talking about inventory, whether your customer interfaces with Apple or Google or Microsoft's cloud to enroll a device into their cloud-based management, it's similar to how you enroll your personal phone. So just kind of keep those things in mind. And let's talk a little bit more about discovery. Here's a list of all the methods and protocols you can use to discover devices, okay, using KACE Unified Endpoint Management. For illustrative purposes, let's take a look at a list of pretty much all the methods that modern management uses for discovery. Okay, well, that's pretty much, it's pretty clear that today discovery is not a feature offered by modern device management solutions. So let's take a look at the next step in Unified Endpoint Management. How do we manage devices? Well, what do we manage? This slide shows that devices that are effectively managed with KACE product, for example, UEM product. But what about modern management only? Well, again, modern management is not as deep as traditional management, and KACE does both. Remember what we talked about earlier. If you don't know what is hitting your network, you can't manage it. And if you can't manage it, you can't secure it. And that's causing cracks in your IT foundation. Can modern management manage servers? No. If we drill down into a survey we recently commissioned in December, we see that the proportion of IT admin departments that manage both their endpoints and they're also manage their data centers. So they manage both endpoints and servers. Guess what percentage of admins are that do both? 91%. Frankly, that sounded high to me, particularly for super large IT environments. But for SMB, it's very likely, and that's what the survey said. So Same thing goes with solutions, 90%. So what? So you very likely want to use the same system for both. So that's interesting. Modern management only providers, like Workspace ONE, for example, or, Mobile and the other ones out there, cannot manage servers. So if you have to go, what do you have to do now? Now you have to go research, buy, install, train, and maintain two disparate systems with your data siloed in two different spaces, two buckets of data instead of one source of usable information. But further, can they manage Linux with an agent and agentlessly? No, probably not. Modern only. Microsoft? No, not really. Will they provide security package updates for Linux? No, not so much. Case will for our big agent-based server distros, Red Hat, SUSE, Ubuntu, CentOS. We recently added an agent for CentOS, for example. We also added Raspbian, the operating system for Raspberry Pi, which is very much not used for servers, but for IoT, big time. We'll get back to that in a minute. But what if you not only cannot manage something with modern management, but also your organization's policy is to not allow agents on your servers for security reasons? Or what if you cannot physically put an agent on a device? Well, then you go agentless. So yeah, Linux with an agent or agentless, and with agentless Linux, we segue to agentless devices. You can do inventory and asset management for any SNMP enabled device. Your printers, projectors, network equipment, HVAC, medical devices, all the IoT stuff. So either with or without Windows or Linux operating system, you're good. And if you have service desk and your printer's running low on toner, you can set up a service desk ticket to kick off, and it goes to the right person with the right SLA and track the successful completion. And, people are working instead of standing around a network printer. And whether your IoT devices have Linux or Windows or other operating systems like Cisco Cat OS, on networking equipment, or anything that's SNMP enabled, you're good. But what's the big deal about IoT anyway? The big deal is that it's a big deal. It's growing faster than your kids do immediately after you buy their back to school clothing. In 2021, there will be as many IoT devices as computers. Okay, now I started a case like 8 years ago, 8 years ago, 3.8 billion IoT devices, doubled by 2019. 4 years from now, 15.8, almost doubles again. Like they say, a couple billion here, a couple billion there, and it adds up. IoT is fueling huge growth in Linux and Android for over the air. Windows embedded operating systems, no slouch either. So that is where things are going. If you can't manage them, you don't have unified endpoint management. You have to get multiple tools, or you have this huge security hole. Now, wouldn't it be great, to do all your asset management with one endpoint management solution? That's what the Kingpin survey I mentioned earlier said was the number one ask of people looking for endpoint management solutions. What happens to your security posture? If any of the devices hitting your network aren't managed, everything hitting your network is an attack vector. If you don't know what you have, you can't manage it. If you can't manage it, you can't secure it. I probably should throw in software asset management here too, when we're talking about risks. If you fail a Microsoft audit, the fine is typically $150,000 US. That is per license, okay? What about harvesting unused software? James, you're going to meet him in a minute. James installs Visio on his computer to prepare a flowchart for a PowerPoint presentation and then doesn't use it for 6 months. You're still paying for it. When isn't it better you could have a dashboard that tells you, not just what software is out of compliance, but also what software is not being used, so you can easily harvest it. Give it to someone else, or just stop paying for it, that unused license. Modern management only vendors? Nope. Microsoft, big old gap in their feature functionality and asset management. So, and again, I mentioned earlier, but what about a fully integrated service desk and user portal combination? Leaving out professional services required for either service desk provider, ServiceNow pricing versus case here. Maybe talking 20K versus 0. And always remember to never forget that case service desk does not price per admin. It does not price per admin. All the rest do. Unlimited admins, big price differentiator there. And in addition to the pure security issue aspects of it, how can you do meaningful reporting if you have everything in 6 different databases? What about scripting too? No matter how good any unified endpoint management system is, it can never do everything. And so your admins, they're smart people who write a script to do the thing, right? These guys are the ones who do the work, and they need this. So don't leave them out in the cold doing workarounds when they can so easily do scripting with KCUEM. These guys need this to be built in, and I expect a thank you note from them for telling you this. And patching isn't going away. Application patching in particular, is a big feature gap with Microsoft, for example. Also, patching isn't going away, and patching is the easiest way to reduce your IT security risk, because it's all about security. Ransomware isn't going away. And studies show that unpatched applications and operating systems are targets of most attacks. 1 in 3 breaches are caused by unpatched vulnerability, according to ZDNet. This is a good one. September 2019, McAfee shows cyber attacks have more than doubled this year, and most organizations are in catch-up mode. This is 2019. That was the good old days, with everything going on and going remote in 2020, the exposure to risk has skyrocketed since then. Okay, so again, it's about streamlining your patch management across your entire environment, which is a really easy and way to automate and reducing your risk. Then vulnerability scanning, the stuff that's causing cyber attacks, they're almost always coming from known vulnerabilities. The patches have already existed for months. There's not some evil genius sitting in a bunker somewhere figuring out ways to get you. The good news is that all this is just practicing good IT hygiene, particularly with patching and automating it, and it drastically reduces your risk. So you scan all your computers using the most trusted source in the world, run a report of vulnerable computers, and then patch them automatically. Again, with KACE Unified Endpoint Manager, it's not either, it's not either or. It's not either have these easy buttons that modern management has or having all these other truly necessary things. It's both and. The key word here, again, to remember is flexibility. As you're making your journey to adopt some amount of their devices to modern management, because it's awesome, but so it's about flexibility, the realization that you need a combination of traditional and modern management methods in just the right mix for your needs now and your future needs. When you talk about going with modern management, considering all the things that you can't afford to leave out, what can I leave out of management? Which of these security holes is something I can leave out? Linux? Nope. Non-computer servers, printers, IoT, Chromebook, service desk, vulnerability scanning, the software asset management. If you leave that out, what does your IT team have to do in the future? They got to figure out a way to manage it some other way. A different database, no consistent reporting, no asset management, dogs sleeping with cats, the end of the world. No, seriously though, time-strapped IT now has to spend valuable time researching products, buying them, installing them, training them, maintaining them. Then Joe or Joanne, expert for the new product, leaves the company in a year, crash course. Hey, James, you're it, learn this in 2 weeks on the top of your day job. So you're left with no consistent asset management, which again, Kingpin, that survey I mentioned, says is the biggest need. I'm not even saying that you have to grab all the nodes for every printer and IoT device and do Raspberry Pi updates and all that right now at this very moment. I'm saying that we must have all endpoints managed eventually, or you will leave yourself open to risk of cyber attacks and inefficiency and the Microsoft non-compliance fines and so on. And it literally only takes a few minutes of time to consider this. But it's my job to let you know that every endpoint is an attack vector. And 2, that we do it all and that others don't, and that we manage everything, and that we do subscription and or on premise. So we do traditional and or modern management, and that we're super flexible. Then, I want to make sure you're future-proofing yourself, okay? Again, I just want to get you to understand that everything needs to be managed, but you can do it also in phases. You have to really, right? So, but what you need to know is that when you're ready, we have what you need when you need it, when you're ready. So thank you for your kind attention today. And now it's my honor and privilege to introduce my partner in all things Unified Endpoint Management, James Rico. Welcome, James.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. A great presentation if ever. And let me get my screen shared out. All right, guys. So we're going to take a look at the Case Systems Management Appliance and our Mobile Device Manager, which combined are our Case Unified Endpoint Manager. And yeah, so we'll walk through here today and take a look at everything that Ken had talked about, and hopefully give you some good information. First thing I'd like to show is really kind of a boring page. It's the setting page in here. So one of the first things we're going to do is, bring our devices in to be managed. And we're going to do that a couple ways. Kind of the easy button ways, the way I'd like to show it first is, tying directly into, for Android, for Samsung Knox and Manage Google Play. So we can do a zero-touch enrollment there. For your Mac and iOS shops, we can tie into Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager and, take advantage of DP enrollment in your DP enrollment profiles. And then for your Windows shops, we can either do a manual or light touch enrollment, or we can tie into Azure AD and take advantage of autopilot. So, some direct integrations there. They're going to allow us to have the easiest method for bringing folks online. So send them a device, already have that device's serial number logged into the appropriate portal. The person's going to log into the device, and we're going to drop a policy on there that's going to contain a profile, and we'll be managing that endpoint. So we're starting to manage those things. We got them connected. And then, also we got other devices out there, on our local network that we'll want to find. We can run a discovery schedule, as Ken mentioned earlier. So we can come in here and set up one or many schedules. I'll open a blank one up. And we can do various tests, as you can see under discovery type here, to look for and connect to devices. So if I've got VMware Hyper-V I want to tie into, I can run a schedule to bring those devices in. I can run an SNMP schedule and bring my printers and switches and routers in. Maybe I want to hit my Windows devices with WinRM. I can tie into Google. I can tie into Workspace ONE or a Case Cloud MDM and bring those devices in. So we can look for those various kinds of devices, see the results from that scan and decide if we want to provision those devices or not. And I've ran a scan here and you can see some things that are already known and I've already pulled in. But as Ken mentioned, we don't have to necessarily actively manage something. Maybe we just want to know what's out there. But once we've reached that point where we've brought in devices, that's kind of the starting point for everything else we'll do in the products. I'm on the device page here, which is going to list out all the endpoints that we've decided to manage, be those Windows, Linux, Mac, Android, iOS, printers, routers, switches. So this is a page where we'll all be landed at. You can do a quick search in top right and look for, like, if somebody calls into a help desk, you can look somebody's device up by their name. You can filter easily by the types of devices they have. I got some labels built here for, different operating systems and things. But once we've, decided, hey, I need to look up one of my devices here, maybe it's having a problem, or maybe I just need to know some information about it, I can open up that and we'll see very good, device detail information. So very granular information about that endpoint. And also as part of that, so all this information is our agent's going to harvest. So it's going to regularly query that endpoint and look for its configuration, who's logged in, information about the software and the operating system on it. We also give you places in here where you can edit the asset information related to that. So these top three right here I've just highlighted, I can create subtypes. I can assign things to locations, to people. So if I do hire 100 new people and order 100 new laptops, it's quite a big investment in devices. You want to make sure who those are going to and where they're going to. So at the end of employment, you can be sure and get those back. And we provide a route to let you do that. But the rest of the information there, our agent's going to automatically harvest that. So this is running Mac OS. I've got some uptime information, who's logged in. Maybe it's not the person you assigned it to. Under source here, we can see we're co-managing this device. So our traditional agents there, and we also have our MDM hooks into that. So that's going to allow us a greater amount of capability. So zero-touch deployment, some of the easy button things like unenroll that device, factory reset, restart, shut down, maybe some firmware setting, wake the device up. And I've highlighted over the Mac OS because that's what this device is. But if it was iOS, I'd have another set of controls, or Android or Windows. So depending on the device type, I get some extra features around that. In addition to that, we're going to harvest information about the hardware. So we're going to grab like service tags, serial numbers, hardware information. We'll detailed information about the operating system, encryption, installed profiles, all the installed software. It's really a very detailed inventory scan on that endpoint. If we roll it down to the bottom down here, we can even see asset information. So I can, again, edit information about that device that the operating system wouldn't know. So, we're just took a look at one device here. I'm not going to dig through and pull everything else up and show you an example of one-offs. It's all going to be very similar if it's Windows or iOS or Android device, just relative to that operating system. The key takeaway is we're going to automatically pull that information, put it in here, and make it easy for you to look at and easy to sort and filter on it and get the information you need about those devices. We also pull in like a software catalog. So we maintain a software catalog. We'll update it, push it to your appliance. Really, this is just used for license compliance. So I've got 7-zip here. It shows 5 machines installed. If I click that 5, there's the 5 machines that have it. So, 7-zip's not really costing you anything, but if it was, Visio or something, and you want to know exactly what machines have what software, we harvest that automatically and display that. You can build an installer for this software and push it out. So I can attach media, build an installer, and automate pushing that software out. Where it says add new license here. If I buy 25 more seats of a software title, I can enter that information, that purchase information, and again, track that license, which I'm highlighting here, against that software title across my environment. So we'll give you a very good insight onto, who's running what software on what device. We'll move down a little bit here to the asset management module. So, there's inventory. Our agents can discover things for you. And then the asset management module is going to allow you to, one, make sense of some of that information. So, here's a couple widgets for license compliance, underutilized software, or maybe something shows up in red over here. You've got too many seats deployed, and if an audit's going to happen, it's going to cost you some money. So, kind of key you up to some situations that may be costing your company money. But in addition to that, we'll allow you to track other things. So, Ken mentioned earlier, furniture, cars, various other tools or test equipment. Really anything that's on a spreadsheet that you're currently keeping track of, you can create an asset type to match, import it into Case, assign ownership to those things, create roles for different people in the organization. And if you have a team that makes purchases, we can track those purchases. So a common thing was somebody will make a purchase. Well, when you do that, there's going to be things like a purchase order number, a purchase date, a quantity, a cost, a copy of the sales receipt. Maybe there's a contract associated with that. So hardware, software, other. Maybe you get a grant for something, need to track that. Within our asset management module, you can take all the kind of financial aspects of IT and related things and tie those to the devices that they apply to. So when you instead of just managing the physical device, from the time you place the order until you retire it and everything in between, you can track and manage with the Case Unified Endpoint Manager. The license compliance page is just a place where you can come here and take a quick look at, hey, how many are installed, how many seats own, am I in the black or red as far as variants? And anything in red you might want to take a look at. Here's also where you can set up to uninstall software that's not been used in either 30, 60, or 90 days. So another good example is somebody requests software like a Visio or something. They need it once for a short period of time. They never use it again. And Case can automatically harvest that. And then the next person, instead of buying another copy, you can redeploy that software out. And there's always people that put their hand up, hey, I need the software, and never use it. So you can catch those folks too, and really help keep your cost to a minimum. And really, the other thing great about asset management is planning for future costs, because we'll discover like service tag information and you can track warranty information against devices, so it can help you plan and budget for next year's spend. When we get talking about the service desk here in a little bit, you can track how many service requests you've managed and how many people it took to do it. So when you go to, you're talking to management for next year's budget, this will give you a place to find and attach real dollars to the amount of devices you need to replace, the amount of time spent on doing various things to have proof to back up that request for extra budget for next year that we all like to have. Just kind of move along though. There's distribution and scripting, and we provide a couple ways of doing that. So for a case, you can do what's called a managed install, or you can run a script for something. You can do either one. And basically any package that you can manually kick off and run on an endpoint, you can load that in here and we can automate pushing that out against any of the supported operating systems we cover for Windows, Linux, or Mac. Another method we have to do that with our MDM product is leveraging the app stores. So if I come over here, I can leverage the Apple App Store. I can leverage the Android store. I can upload an MSI or something directly in here and push out. So we give you multiple kind of ways of doing things. I guess the ultimate toolbox for getting things done in the IT realm. Be it the easy button using the App Store, and that's great in some scenarios. Some software you want to do that. Other software, hey, I want to run a script that's very complex that looks for a set of conditions on an endpoint. Maybe you need to kill a process, delete a registry key, or create a registry key, and then drop the new software on that. With our script module, you can kind of fill in the blanks and create scripts that'll do things like that for you. So, kind of just to back up and restep. So we connect to our devices. We're going to pull an inventory on our devices. And then we want to configure those devices. We want to push software out to them, be it via the App Store or distribution or scripting. Another kind of easy button feature we have on our MDM side of things, you can configure their VPN, configure the Wi-Fi, push out certificates, push out my Office 365 configuration. We've connected, inventory, configured the devices. Once those things are configured, we need to keep them up to date. So that's where our security module would come into play. And there's a number of things going on here. I just landed on the dashboard right at the first, because really one of the things I hear from people is, hey, yeah, we patch things, but how do you report on that? Well, we don't. We just turn all the machines on and said, hey, we need, go out and get patches when they're available. But it usually doesn't cover the third-party stuff. And then you don't really know or can prove compliance that things are patched, that they are secure. And if you get an audit, how do you prove that you've done the things that you said you set up? Well, and really the dashboard here is not 100% for that, but it is, kind of a reference to, critical patch compliance, 90%. I can drill into and I can edit the compliant widget here. Like, what do I want to look at for compliance? I can tell it what to do. There's also, built-in reports. The widget over here has access to reports that could quickly get you to look at reports that show you how well patching has happened in your environment. And then if I want to dig in a little deeper and actually, hey, I need to configure patching, I need to set it up, we got a really good, nice tool for that. I've opened up the patch catalog, really just to give you a view of what we're going to push out. And as an organization, we maintain our own patch catalog. So that's for operating systems and applications. So your third-party applications, it's just as well as the operating system. We can patch those. The other thing we do is we give you total control over how you patch your endpoints, when you patch your endpoints, as well as the user interaction. Is it ran silently? Does it give the user a little pop-up window? You have total control over that with KACE. So, if you have work from home users, they may get treated, patched a certain way on a certain date and time. If it's machines running, Windows 10 or Macs that are just in a room when there's nobody in there after hours, maybe you just run those silently, pick a random day of the week. If it's servers, obviously you'd want to run those separate. So we really give you total control over doing that. And the patch catalog page, each line in here is actually a patch. And one of the things I like to call out is, the compliance column here. This patch, I'm 100% compliant in my environment. There's a number 4, just like I've showed you a few times. If you click that number next to something, it'll typically show you what machines, which machines have it, and there happens to be 4 of them. The other thing I like about this, in the search box, I can type in like a KB number and then find a patch and then know instantly if I'm compliant or not across my environment. So, earlier Ken had mentioned that, most exploits that happen and things that are out there are known vulnerabilities, like Microsoft or whoever knew about them, typically have made a patch for it and made it available. So how do you know when the next big whatever hits, are you compliant or not? You read the TechNet article, type the number in here, or maybe it's 1 or 2, and you can know instantly if your environment's covered for that. And how we help you keep covered in compliance is we do patching with patch schedules, and I kind of talked about what you can do with them. I'll just open one up here for my servers I have set up. But a few things, we give you again visibility into what's going on. So down here at the bottom is a status. I got some different tabs for different kind of views of information about how this patch job ran. The first tab is machine. If I open that up, I can see what patches went on that machine with a time and date stamp. So if you want to know what happened on a per machine level, we can show you that. We can run a report, kind of shows everything across the board, or you can look at the patch itself and know how well that patch is in your environment. So we're really going to help keep you on top of what's going on in addition to help you doing it. And just real quick, I'll open up a schedule and we'll kind of go quick through here. But under action here, I can look for patches. We call it detect. I can look for and stage patches. So I can just what's missing on that machine, get them ready to go. I can allow the end user to do an on-demand deploy. They can pick when to run it. Again, very good for work from home scenarios, so you're not interrupting people in their jobs. Maybe I just want to force it to run a detect and deploy. Again, maybe servers or machines when they're not going to be in use. You ever push out a patch and it breaks something? Got 10,000 machines and you roll out a patch and you start getting phone calls and you realize what patch it was and you got 10,000 machines that you need to remove a patch from. With KACE, you can build a schedule and roll that patch back out. Most of the patches in our catalog support that. And if not, you can run a script to pull it back out. But that's kind of the easy button for getting yourself out of a tough spot with a patch. You can do that. So, total control over patching, third-party patches for Mac, Windows, OS patches for your Windows devices. You can also do Windows feature updates, very similar to patching. It's done with a schedule, but the catalog in here is your next release of Windows. 28 shoes, ready to go. I'm at 50% compliance. We have vulnerability scanning, OVAL and SCAP scans. So again, provision, inventory, set those, configure those devices as part of the provisioning process, and then keep them up to date moving forward. Kind of last piece of that would be that, using the service desk. Hey, how are we going to ensure that the SLAs are being met, that our user requests are being tracked and ultimately fulfilled in a timely manner? I've talked to a lot of organizations that how do you manage requests? Well, people will call us or they'll email us. How do you keep track of things and not drop something on accident? Well, if you got like 25 users, that's great. You could probably do that and keep up with it. But when you have hundreds or maybe thousands of users and devices, it's really not practical to rely on email or just call in to somebody and have them help take care of stuff. With KACE, there comes with a built-in ticketing system. And again, a nice thing here is we don't license around technicians or users or even how many queues you have set up. You can set up as many queues as you want in here. And a lot of times what we'll see is other organizations or other teams in your organization will find out, hey, there's a help desk, and yeah, we can have one too. So maybe your HR folks or your facilities team would want to be able to take requests and manage them. And kind of just to wrap up here, everything we've looked at, we can report on. So there's over 200 built-in reports. You can, KACE has an API. OBDC connection to the database. So if you love writing SQL and want to do that kind of thing, you can write your own SQL reports. There's a wizard in the product to do that, where you can make a report. You can also just drop your SQL code in there. A nice thing with you can schedule reports. So you can schedule your patch jobs and then schedule a follow-up report to get emailed out to everybody to show compliance. I think we'll probably stop here and leave a little time for Q&A at the end. And I appreciate you guys' time and looking forward to speaking with you guys. And I guess with that, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions.
Hello, and thank you again for joining us for this great presentation. Gentlemen, that was fantastic. Thank you for that in-depth look at what you're doing around Unified Endpoint Management. Before we get started with Q&A, I want to make sure we launch a poll question for our audience. You'll see it up on your screen, and while we are answering questions, we'll have our audience answer that question for us. All right, so James and Ken, you're still here, right?
Yep.
All right, so we have a number of questions that came in. The first one is, are you supporting clients that use Apple's new M1 processor?
Yes, we do. So we've got two components: our mobile management side and our traditional management side, and we're good to go with either one.
Okay. And the other question is this an agent or app-based management tool?
So it actually does both. So if we enroll this on the modern management side, it's we're going to drop a profile in there and manage it that way. And also on we have a case agent to drop on there to do everything else we talked about. And there's a lot of types of devices. So we can support Windows, Linux, Mac, Android, iOS. So if it's Windows, Linux, or Mac, we can connect to either modern style management or with an agent or both. If it's iOS or Android, it's profile-based management. And there's apps that get pulled down for location tracking and such.
And you can do agentless management as well, yeah.
Excellent. The next question is a little bit long, so bear with me. You mentioned VMware Workspace ONE and Google G Suite. Is there current integrations or planned integrations with Microsoft Intune or Endpoint Manager coming in this at some point?
No, not at this time.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you manage instances in the cloud?
So if it's any of the devices we talked about, that's fine. We don't care if it's a virtual machine or a virtual machine running in cloud. If it's one of the supported operating systems we manage, we can tie into that and run it.
This is an important one, especially kind of given the state of where things are right now. The question is, are these features only available with devices that are company-owned, or are you able to perform these tasks on a device owned by an employee or a guest?
Yeah, so either one's fine. If it's a mobile device, those inherently support BYOD or company-owned modes of management. But as far as like your traditional devices, like your Windows, MacBooks, or Linux, it doesn't really matter. We'll manage it the same. On the kind of the modern style management stuff, if it's BYOD, sometimes the scope of controls may be limited a bit versus fully owned, but we can manage both.
And just a reminder to the audience, we do have a poll question up on the screen that we're going to leave up while we do Q&A, and we'll share the results immediately afterwards. And our next question is remote machine image provisioning also supported?
Yeah, that's a little tricky one. So the word, image and then provision. So we don't image remotely. We do, provision. So, through the modern style management capabilities, using either Apple DEP or Windows Autopilot, or even there's a light touch version of that where somebody can click a link and log in. We'll provision or configure what is already there. So it's not really, we're not imaging it remotely, but we're provisioning that endpoint.
Having said that, we do have a separate product called the KACE Systems Deployment Appliance, which specifically does that. And it does it very, very well. You might want to look on our website for that, the KACE System Deployment Appliance. Take a look at that as well.
Excellent. This is another one that's a little bit long, so bear with me. Many devices now have GPS or location tracking capability. Is the system able to capture location history, and how do you deal with EU GDPR issues around personal data?
Yeah, sure, I'll grab that. So yeah, we support location awareness tracking. And actually, when we designed that feature as part of our product, you know, we took in GDPR into consideration, and part of the things that we built around that are when somebody initially provisions and you have location enabled as part of a policy, the end user will get a prompt to accept that. And we actually also, as part of the setup, will have your organization either put a link to your data privacy policy, or there's a place where you can just copy and paste the text in for your data privacy policy. So they have to opt in, they have to view the data privacy policy of your organization, and then once those two things occur, then you can either set location tracking, kind of like a high, medium, low accuracy. You know, it really is around battery life is what those settings are for. You know, get better battery life the less it checks in. And then there's also an on-demand version, so you can go in there and hit that. The other thing we've enabled as part of that is giving, really as part of the compliance stuff for GDPR, is allowing the users to opt out of tracking temporarily. And again, this is all things you can set up within the product. So you can say, hey, I'm gonna give the user either, and you can do it like you know, minutes, hours, or days. And you can plug in a time frame, like if they opt out, for how long that occurs. But you also will set a limit on that in conjunction with that. Like, hey, if they opt out, maybe, you know, twice in a row, you're fine with it. If they hit it a third time, you want that device to be listed as non-compliant. And then as a matter of policy, you can reach out to the user and say, hey, what's up?
Okay. We have one more, actually a couple more questions. How far back do you go? The question here is, will this work with older operating systems like Windows 7?
Gotcha. Yeah, so we can still support Windows 7. And we actually have a number. So officially we support, and there's a link on our website of all the versions. But if it's a currently supported version from either Microsoft, some various Linux flavors we support, or Mac, we'll connect to those. In addition to that, we have agentless capability to connect to things. So if you have an older device, you probably still could even connect to that. You may not be able to put the agent on there, but we can agentlessly connect and do an inventory against that endpoint.
And we have time for another question. Do you by chance have a best practices document that the viewer could use for modernizing their strategy?
I'm not sure.
Actually,
I'll pass it on to Ken.
Yeah, it's actually, we have a whole bunch of stuff, and I wouldn't give you I can't just give you one particular thing, but I can give you the means to find whatever you want. If you just go to, just Google KACE, KACE Systems Management Appliance, or KACE Unified Endpoint Manager, and it'll take you to a variety of data sheets and all those sort of things, because I don't know how you like to do your evaluations, but there's like stuff on 5 ways to battle cybercrime. From a security perspective, there's stuff doing it more from an endpoints perspective, but just go on our website at quest.com/case, and you'll be able to find pretty much any tool you'll need for making those decisions. Thanks for asking. Good question.
And we have time for one more, and this is another long one. So with your granular inventory feature, are you able to also block or whitelist devices from connecting to the network manually or automatically based on certain criteria?
So we don't actually have network access control. I thought I answered this one already via the chat, but no. And I sent the person who asked it some website to some places where you can check out some that do network access control per se. Endpoint management systems typically don't do that solution, and so you use it in concert with another solution.
Okay. That's all the time we have for questions. Let's take a look at our poll responses. So about half of you are using some kind of modern and traditional management together. 12% are doing something with modern management only, and 36% with traditional management only. So it looks like there's a lot of room for opportunity for everybody to kind of level up a little bit. James, Ken, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here. And thank you for sharing your insight into what is a really important topic. And one that, I don't know, sometimes I think organizations overlook. So really appreciate your insight. We're also going to be giving away a gift card And the winner of our $300 gift card, if I can find it here, give me a second. Yep, is Mary Kellum from North Carolina. Mary, we'll be reaching out to you immediately after the event or shortly after the event with information on how to collect your gift card. And again, thank you to our guests from Quest for another excellent presentation. And as always, thank you to our fantastic audience for being here. Everybody, please have a fantastic and safe rest of your day.